I think I've got it here. Don't I have it here? Isn't this the button? I think this is it. Hey there, friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it might be in your part of the world. Welcome back to the live stream. This is C Sharp with CSharpFritz. I realize I'm talking to you like this. How's it going there, friends? It's so good to see you. It's sunny. It's beautiful out here in Philadelphia. And I want to talk to you today about containers. Let's talk about software technology. Let's talk about writing software better, C Sharp, .NET code, and today we're going to talk about containers. All the things that we can do. What is a container? How can we use that? How can we deploy to our favorite cloud service, a nice fluffy blue cloud service out there, and get the most out of these things? There's all kinds of ways that we can use containers as C# developers, and I want to show you how to get started, how to deploy, and some of the things that'll get you pointed in the right direction so that you can be successful with containers in your organization. But before we get too far into this, let's say hello to the chat room. They're right over there, and the timer didn't pop up. There we go. We have 40 minutes of AMA to get us started. Some Ask Me Anything time here. Your chance to ask questions about .NET, C#, Azure, Visual Studio. We'll talk about it, and we'll go through and spend some time discussing all those things. This is a discussion-oriented video series where we're going to talk about all those things. And you know what? If we don't know the answers, we'll go look them up. We'll write some samples. We'll do the things that we need to in order to get you solutions, get you pointed in the right direction. Let me say hello to the folks that are here in chat. We're broadcasting to YouTube and Twitch today. Let me say hello to Eduardo is there on YouTube. Hello, hello. Napalm on Twitch. C# Titan is dialed in from Australia on Twitch. Good evening to you. Hope you're having a great day. Sharaf is here on YouTube, says, good afternoon from Egypt. Happy you get to see more C# content again. You're the best, Jeff. Oh, that's very kind. Keep it up. Well, thank you. I will. Hello to you. Is it Quach? Is that how you pronounce that? In Vietnam? Hello, Ahmed. Good morning to you. You're excited for .NET 8. We are too. .NET 8 Preview 5 was released yesterday. There's information on the .NET blogs. You can learn more about that over there on the blog. Great updates in there for our containers, of course, and also for ASP.NET Core. There's usually other blog posts that come out about Entity Framework and .NET MAUI updates. I didn't see them at release time, but I'm sure there's additional updates coming for those technologies as well. Hey there, UNESCO says, some say that if you say the word containers 3 times, it summons Robert Tables. Our friend Robert Tables on Twitch is quite a fan of container technologies. Visual Studio on Linux. So, Visual Studio Code is our solution for folks that are on Linux. There's a great extension ecosystem there, folks that have built all kinds of tools to make that editor more complete with all the features that you might be looking for. And now with C# Dev Kit, you can run all the things that folks enjoy about C# and .NET development in full Visual Studio. In Visual Studio Code, whether it's on Windows, Mac, or Linux. So, right, not just Ubuntu Linux, but you can run it on a Raspberry Pi. You can run it on your favorite flavors of Linux. Right? Take your pick. Roll it out wherever you'd like. Hello there. This is Sparta. Good to see you. Too Much Hassle on Twitch says hello. It's 8 p.m. in Vietnam. Oh, my goodness. Welcome in. I'm glad you're spending your evening with me here. Yep, VS Code works on Windows, Mac, and Linux. DJ Deepex, hello to you in Germany. You love some containers, Napalm? Me too. I spent some time yesterday tinkering with some containers, trying to put an application into a container, and was running into a little bit of an issue. Still haven't resolved it yet, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on here. Yes, VS Code does work on Linux. Is there a plan for full Visual Studio on Linux? Not currently. There is not currently anything being said, being shared about a Visual Studio on Linux. VS Code is where we see folks um, finding success and enjoying um, enjoying writing code right now. Stand by 1 second here. There we go. There we go. I've got two machines running here, and so that I can monitor both the feeds and I can moderate and so forth. Hello to you, Cynthia McLeod in Scotland. Hope you're having a fantastic afternoon. John's here from New Jersey. Hello, hello, close to me there, just to the east. Napalm says, not a question, but look forward to containers capability in CS Proj files. Yes, that's something we're going to talk about today. You can generate containers without having to know much about container technology. You can, from your project definition, say, hey, here's how I want my container to look and feel. When you build and publish, go put it in one of these, and I'll show you how that works today. You forget what it was that you ran into where it wouldn't work, but it has a lot of potential. Absolutely. There's always potential for technologies where we can lower the bar, make it easier for folks to get started with technologies, and give you that easy on-ramp so that you have the basic get started technology, tools, resources available to you. Because once you dip your toe in the water, right, and you figure out, hey, this isn't too bad. This works out nicely for me. I can use this. Then you can step up and get a little bit more advanced and use other techniques because you want to start to dial in other features, other capabilities, and build your application with more of those techniques that are advanced because you now appreciate what that tool, what that technology delivers for you. So I really like using the container, the Docker file as container builds inside of our CS project files to start building an application. Let me get some music playing here in the background now that we got the chat room warmed up a little bit here. Let me go to the Stream Beats synthwave playlist. Let's get some music playing here to get us started. There we go. This is Stream Beats by Harris Heller. This is music that's DMCA free, royalty free. I like to have it just in the background, filling the quiet space between discussion because it's groovy, it sounds cool, it's free, and I really enjoy it. So check it out, streambeats.com. There's free music available there for you for all kinds of different genres. I like these instrumentals that are kind of upbeat and make us kind of get us excited here. Thank you so much to Harris Heller and his team of creators for putting this music together that we're listening to today. Let me catch up some more here in chat. How you doing there, Roro in Korea? It's nighttime out there. Oh, yes. I'm glad you're spending your evening with me. Thank you so much. I hope I don't put you to sleep. Guillermo is here in Spain. Hola to you. Hope you're having a fantastic afternoon. Good day to you, Mohammed in Saudi Arabia. How's it going? Tony, fantastic. I will make sure I remember that going forward. C# Titan points out that Visual Studio 17.7 Preview 2 is now available. It's awesome with lots of cool features. It is. Always great stuff there. How you doing there? Jane is here from Brazil, watching on YouTube. Great to see you, Jane. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. Victor from Peru. Hello, hello. So, gosh. We've got some folks from Asia. We heard Korea and Vietnam. We've got some folks from Brazil and Peru. We've got South America covered, New Jersey. We've got North America covered. We heard some folks from Scotland are here, so we've got a little bit of Europe. Anybody from Africa and Australia? Let's see if we can close out 6 of the 7 continents here today. You're happy you get to watch it this time? I am too, Roro. I really like broadcasting here on Wednesday morning. It's Wednesday morning for me here in Philadelphia. I'm just south of New York in the United States. Roberto asks, am I trying to deploy on AKS today, or are you wanting to use Azure Container Apps? Great question. Let me make sure we scope that properly. I'm going to deploy to Azure Container Apps today. I'm also going to deploy to Azure App Service today, because I want to focus on using containers. I don't want to get into some of the orchestration capabilities with Kubernetes that are really more of a DevOps type of thing that go beyond just, hey, I'm a developer, get my application running over here. That's more architecture and a little bit further than I want to go with this. So thank you for helping clarify that, Roberto. Much appreciated. Guillermo says here, every time I start to use a new tech, Fritz creates a video about it. Many thanks for the up-to-date content. You're very welcome. Thank you so much. Is it oh my goodness. Obalan Sarad. Is that a way of saying it will not come because a lot of companies use Visual Studio and schools it well, which leaves a lot of performance needed to study? My laptop only has 8 gig of RAM. I can't tell you what information about future products are being planned from Microsoft that are not publicly available or are not being considered. I can tell you that there is not a public announcement of a Visual Studio on Linux, and our current messaging is it's not what we recommend. It's not what we are considering. We recommend folks use Visual Studio Code on Linux. It's got a great set of features that are now with C# Dev Kit using the same tools and feature set that you have on Visual Studio. That said, Windows with 8 gig of RAM and running Visual Studio Community Edition is still a pretty good experience. In fact, demos that I give when I travel around the world to various conferences and speak and teach folks how to build with ASP.NET Core, .NET MAUI, Blazor. I'm using a Surface Book 2. That's a 4-year-old laptop at this point, and it only has 8 gig of RAM, and I'm running Visual Studio 2022. So 8 gig of RAM is just fine to run Visual Studio. That's what I use. And when I demo from my other set, and we're going to have the other set back up and running here for tomorrow on my next stream, I'll be there. But you'll see I have a Chrome Surface laptop that I use that has 8 gig of RAM, and I'm teaching and showing things on that laptop. So, yes. Do I know if there's coming up an actual version of web deploy to send ASP apps directly to Windows IIS server? I do not have any knowledge of that. I'm sorry, DJ Deepex. Rich though Fen 80. Only acceptable answer is Emacs and .NET CLI. So that's actually a bit of what we hear in surveys from folks that are on Linux is, I'd prefer to use Emacs or Vim. Or some other code editor. So, until the team is ready to make additional decisions and say, well, let's go interview and consider feasibility for other platforms, the most recent studies that the team has done, and they don't do those studies lightly, indicate that a text editor like Visual Studio Code, and that hence the product decision, is the way to go. How you doing there, TC Coder? Excited to be learning about containers. Fantastic. No golden beard. My goodness. I've colored my beard here a couple times for fundraisers for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. For how long are we going to continue this series of Learn C# with CSharpFritz, asks Essex. How long would you like it to go? Would you like it to end? Would you like it to cycle around? Would you like a different topic? I'm happy to hear your opinions. Can you run 2 containers that run in different Docker engines? What do you mean? Help me out with that question. Give me some... What do you mean by different Docker engines? Can you run 2 containers in the same engine? Yes. Can you run 2 of the same container in the same engine. Yes. All kinds of stuff that you can do there. Mr. Worldwide, yes, a little bit. Romania as well, fantastic. There we go. Baruch is here from Ethiopia. Fantastic. We've got folks in Africa covered. Just somebody from Australia, New Zealand, somebody from Oceania. Oceania? Is that how you say it? How you doing there? Is it Nove? Hello. Franklin is here from the Bronx. Good to see you. You're welcome, Roberto. Tony says, I deployed to Azure App Services recently. Once you got everything set up, it's pretty seamless. That's kind of the goal. When we, the Microsoft team, as developers, as engineers that are trying to build products for our customers, we want to make it as easy as possible for you to get into those 80% scenarios, right? Those scenarios that are going to cover most of what folks want to do. When you want to start layering in other additional architectures, additional features, we want to make it easy for you to go and grab those features and add them into your system architecture. And then, if you need to go even further than that, give you those extension points so that you can go and build advanced capabilities. So that's very much a strategy. Yes, big celebration. UNESCO pointing out last night, the Las Vegas Golden Knights in the National Hockey League here in the States. They won the it's States and Canada. They won the championship, Lord Stanley's Cup. They've won, awarded for the 130th time. First time being awarded to the city of Las Vegas and their Golden Knights. Congratulations to the folks out in the desert there. I do enjoy visiting Las Vegas and going and seeing a Golden Knights hockey game. Congratulations to those folks. I'm sure they're very, very excited this morning, if they even slept last night. How you doing there in Kazakhstan? Is it Serum? Hello. Hey, Wayne, good to see you. Rebuilt a Pi cluster last night with K3S. So this is timed very well. Cool. That's great to hear. Your Surface Book 2 is still chugging along just fine, says Napalm. Mine is on its last legs. I've hit just about the edge of how that's working. I should probably rebuild it and see how it does. I do use my K-Focus laptop, primarily my Linux-based laptop, when I do .NET development when I'm on the road. Yes, indeed. OBA? Not a problem. Hadn't heard of C-Sharp Dev Kit. So C-Sharp Dev Kit is... let me go grab that blog post. There we go. I will share this link into chat. C-Sharp Dev Kit is the new set of 3 extensions. So it's an enhancement on top of the C-Sharp extension that's currently there. That's an open source tool that's available. There's additionally licensed tools that go with that are licensed under the same license as Visual Studio. So if you're a student, if you're in a small organization, if you're in a nonprofit, you can get these tools under license, no cost to you. But if you are a professional software organization, we do ask that you pay for a license. But there's additional that'll give you enhanced IntelliCode and will give you the additional Solution Explorer, Test Explorer that you have in Visual Studio, but instead in Visual Studio Code now as well. That's C-Sharp Dev Kit, that collection of 3 extensions that you can now add into Visual Studio Code and significantly level up your C-Sharp development experience. But as always, the C-Sharp extension is fully open source. It's an evolution that now over top of the original OmniSharp one. It's got a much, much more improved C-Sharp editing experience, and that is MIT licensed. You can continue to use that completely free. Is it Tarka Code? You remember your first try at C-Sharp was with Visual Studio Code because you didn't know Visual Studio was a thing as a total beginner. That's okay. Running your first Hello World was kind of hard. With Visual Studio Code now, significantly easier to do. Significantly easier. We definitely heard that feedback and wanted to make an improvement on that. The team that was working on that, I think I can say Tim and his team that were working on that. You can see on the blog post there, did a great job of really boiling down, improving that experience, and they're listening to feedback so they can improve and continue to make that better for Visual Studio Code users. DJ Deepak says, I love that Docker on Windows shares the same running containers on WSL. Yes. You guess Linux users are not total beginners, so they should be able to use VS Code. Yeah. I would definitely agree with that sentiment that Linux users, they certainly are not beginners, and typically a little bit more advanced in their usage of development technologies. Okay, cool. Just keeping an eye on things. Continuing down here. Pure Chrome says, good day, love Docker containers, and it's been such a game changer when I started using it for both .NET applications or just running something without installing it, like trying out .NET previews, like .NET 8, other languages, other applications like databases. Yes, being able to start up and have that database living in a container somewhere so that you can, well, if it's not what you want, you don't have to go through a huge process to uninstall. You just delete the container and it's gone. Very, very nice. Phil the Thrill is now a 3-time Stanley Cup champ. I believe are you referring to Phil Kessel, I think is who you're referring to. Essex, you like to practice some of the exercises from the live streams. Nice. Yeah. And we're going to do a lot of this session live today. I'll show you where to find the documentation. I'll write up and I'll have a link to the session below in the recording. How about changing my Surface Book to a Galaxy Book? I really enjoy using my K-Focus, to be honest, and I have an M1 Mac. Not a fan of the M1 Mac, though. Yeah, Napalm, it is on its last legs. Jason asks, is there a website or book? Sorry, Jason, I'm missing the context in your question there. Website or book on what? Just a quick reminder for folks. There's a lot of questions coming through. Give me the whole context for your question, because I might not see some of what else you may have said right next to it. I want to make sure that I catch the whole thing and answer your questions and have a discussion properly about what it is you want to talk about. You love using VS Code, especially if you run into CSHTML files. Oh yeah. Can I try today's demo with code with the C# dev kit? Sure. We can do a little bit of that. I think I thought I had it installed here in my VS Code locally. Let me just take a quick peek. A quick pick. I don't know what I'm saying here. I'm just a guy in a bad haircut trying to get along here. That's installed. Yeah, I do have it installed, and it looks like it's all up to date. So we can definitely take a look at that. Hey, Chris Jones, good to see you. Hello. Yeah, Phil. Okay, Phil Kessel. There we go. Oba says, sometimes you're a Linux beginner since every time you try to scoot over to it, you get trapped with some software like Visual Studio or Adobe that you need for school or work. I wouldn't say you're trapped with some of those that you need for schoolwork. There are alternatives that you can use on Linux, and the Linux community has done a lot to make sure there are alternatives available, but you can always start up a virtual machine on a Linux system, install Windows on it, and jump across. You can't install Mac OS. That's against the license. If you need Mac software, gotta buy a Mac. Um, Kumar asks, what is the best way to call an async method from the constructor? Don't do that. That's the worst thing. No. Constructors should not be running asynchronous methods. Constructors should not be running significant methods inside your objects. Let's talk about that design a little bit. You may want to have some sort of initialize method that you run asynchronously that you call after you construct an object. When you're using technologies where a dependency injection framework is available, you really don't want things to modify the initial state of an object inside of a constructor, because you don't have control of when that object is being constructed. You don't know if it's the first time that it's being used. You don't know if it's being reused. And quite frankly, that's something you shouldn't care about. Consider using some sort of initialization method that you can call that's going to check the state of things and take care of those async methods. Don't call significant processing methods inside your constructor, particularly that are going to be using things like the network, like disk, like, well, network and disk are the two big things, aren't they? Other attached devices to the hardware, because you don't have control of when the constructor is going to run, and you want that constructor to return immediately. If you use something like an initialize method, you can pass in a cancellation token. So if some of those things need to be canceled that you're trying to do, some of those things are running too long, you can cancel it and move on and continue processing. So Kumar, I would question a little bit of your design pattern there and want to dig in a little bit more, and I would suggest some sort of an initialize method. Why .NET's not supporting regular C? What do you mean, Ramwell? You can build wrappers, you can write pointers that will call out into native code. What do you mean by not supporting regular C? You can't use C and compile and target the .NET runtime. There is a managed C++ that folks don't really use too much anymore that is available to you, but what are you looking for there? Small projects on live streams just for practice and understand theoretical concepts. That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. There's so to a little bit of what Essex is saying here, and I know it's scrolled off a little bit. There's an idea, there's a concept we're floating around. I want to get your feedback here, chat, whether you're on YouTube or Twitch. We have an idea for not an office hours type of session. Office hours is kind of like, hey, stop by and ask questions and we'll answer it. Kind of this AMA like what I'm doing now. But we've got a little bit of an idea for help solve my problems. Stack Overflow Live. Community question feedback live, where the idea for a show coming up, not this stream, but a new stream that we're looking at, is we'll grab some popular questions from either Stack Overflow or Microsoft developer community and answer those questions and show some code samples with some of the program managers or engineers on the development team that built and work around that part of the product. So if you're in chat, whether you're on YouTube or Twitch, sorry, folks that are watching the recording, you can't participate in this kind of ad hoc poll. Is that type of, hey, let's answer this question together with one of the engineers who would be answering it probably online, but let's answer it live and talk about it. Is that something that you would be interested in? Give me a 1 in chat if you would be interested. Give me an F as in Frank or Fritz in chat if you would not be interested in it. So type a 1 in chat if, hey, let's solve a problem together is something you'd be interested in. Keith says no. Yes, says Oba. So there we go. Now we're getting some folks. I know there's a little bit of a delay in the presentation here. Oh, wow, there we go. YouTube folks, a lot of folks over there like that idea. Roberto likes the idea. Can it be a Teams meeting on Meetup? So one point of this that's been discussed is perhaps we do it as a Discord meetup. And we use Discord to do that, and we syndicate out to YouTube and Twitch. The challenge that I have with Discord is we can't broadcast out to those other mediums that folks can get to from their offices. Right? If folks are in an office or behind some sort of a firewall, Discord is hard to get to at times. Lots of ones there. I'm not seeing too many Fs at all. Fantastic. All right. I'm gonna run a little bit more with that idea. Thank you for your feedback, chat. I really appreciate that. Let me continue answering some of these questions here. Let me see. 77 Lucky says, am I also going to show something in Docker Compose, like linking with Nginx? I wasn't considering that. Let me see how far we get. School might require to use those software. Sure, I get it. Napalm says, using a init method invoke outside the constructor. Yep. Cynthia, how do you handle an object in DI that needs an async init? Well, at the time that it's presented to you, right? You've requested that object, then call your initialization. Because then you have control over it at that point. Or if it's a singleton, at the time that you create the object and put it into the DI container, and also you can specify the initialization when you register with the singleton, register with the DI container. You can specify to call that method as it's being created. How about attaching a Windows Dev Kit 2023 to your main computer as a computing boost pack? No, I don't like that idea. No, not a problem, Gear. All right, so scrolling, there's all those ones. Yeah. Would be fun to see how we attack open source projects as well. So that's another concept that's been floated of, hey, let's grab an issue in one of the repositories and let's talk through how we would fix that issue, how we would triage, walk through, and identify next steps. Can we vote on the questions before the session? Well, to nobody on Twitch asking, could we vote on the questions for that show before session? We would choose the highly voted questions that are on Stack Overflow or Microsoft Tech Community, and we'd use that voting as an indicator of popularity of interest. Essex remembers when they needed examples in addition to code. The concepts that you read daily, it helped me more to see something, I integrate something, than to read it at a theoretical level. And that's why I host this stream, is to talk through, walk through, show samples, because it's one thing to read, here's how to do this. It's another thing to see how to do it and discuss with other developers. Sean watched the stream on Azure Cosmos DB. What advantage does Azure SQL DB have over Cosmos? When is it better to use Azure SQL, especially as a backend for mobile development? So these are the trade-offs that you make. Azure SQL is SQL Server, the robust enterprise-scale database that has all kinds of different options for how you may want to tweak and push and pull and grow that. It's a relational database through and through, and it's built on tried and trusted, long evolved Microsoft SQL Server technology. Cosmos DB is that do anything Swiss Army knife that can evolve and take on the API structure of a bunch of different database technologies, whether it's graph tables, column-based tables, NoSQL database like MongoDB, or even relational like Postgres. You have the ability to pivot and allow Cosmos DB to provide those APIs appropriately. So Cosmos also is intended to have multi-region replication out of the box. Where SQL Server, it's something you get at higher levels of investment when you purchase more database. With Cosmos, you can replicate and get that out of the box. Ivan asks, by a DI container, do I mean Docker container or do I mean DI source code? Thank you for asking. I should clear that up. By DI container, I mean dependency injection container. In ASP.NET Core, in .NET MAUI, we have our services locator, right? Builder.services.add transient, add scoped, add singleton. Those statements that you see in your ASP.NET Core, in your .NET MAUI applications, in your Blazor applications, that's the dependency injection locator that I'm referring to. Dependency injection container. Service locator as well. You like the idea of grab an OSS issue? Okay. TC Coder asks, can I explain what a delegate is and its usage? We've got about 5 minutes. I can explain that quickly. A delegate in C#, and you'll see it in other languages as well, but in C#, I'll focus there because this is the C# show. A delegate is a pointer to an action method. You pass around this pointer to some other method, do stuff. And I pass around a pointer to the do stuff method because I want to do something else and be able to pass in, well, here's the next thing that I want you to do. Make a decision on something, and if it turns out well, go call the do stuff method next. And as the caller, I can pass in that pointer to that other method called a delegate. Now, you'll see anonymous delegates, and you'll see action methods and func methods in C#. Those are other types of delegates. You'll even see event handlers. Those are delegates as well. That they're just pointers to other methods that are conditionally executed when whatever those are being passed around, passed into, are required. So an event is raised, something happens, a form opens, somebody clicks a button, you passed a delegate into that button click event that says, on click, do this other thing over here. It's not executed at the time that you assigned it to the on click event, but it's a pointer to that other method. That delegate only gets executed when you click the button, or that form opens and that event triggers. So that's what a delegate is. Happy to answer that question. It's a wrapper for a function pointer. Yeah. Yes, Hellreaper. Messages are transmitted back and forth. Make sure that folks know this. When you post a message on YouTube, it gets sent over to Twitch. The Restream bot posts it. And on Twitch, when you post a message in chat, it appears over on YouTube. The Restream bot posts it over there, and you see the name of the person on that other platform. The Restream bot posts it over there. I'm only showing the aggregated Restream chat here. Any resources for MAUI entry validators? The example app of the documentation seems incomplete, asks the Jarex. Do me a favor, drop me a line about that on Twitter so that I can follow up on that later. I don't have anything off the top of my head, and I would need to take a look at that. And I've only got about 2 minutes left in AMA time here. Hey, Thindall, good to see you. Yes, Redmer, you're right. An integer variable type holds an integer. A delegate type holds a pointer to a function. You're welcome, TC Coder. Luther Crow, hello, good to see you on Twitch. Welcome. Wow, I made it through that. Woo. That was a lot. Thank you for the feedback about those show ideas that we're kicking around. We want to innovate and make sure that we're bringing you content you find interesting and educational. And please tell your friends, tell your colleagues, tell the folks down the street that are working for big enterprise company Foo Incorporated. Now selling the bar widgets you've been wanting. Trust Foo today. Folks that work for local and state governments. There's all kinds of free training we have here for you on the .NET, YouTube, and Visual Studio Twitch channels. It's free to tune in. Check out the recordings that are available out there. I talk to folks that work for various organizations, the State Department of Transportation, the developers that work for them that are writing code to help manage their websites and whatnot. We've got free training here for you. Great feedback for you to reach out, talk to us, answer your questions, and interact. Yes, the delegate keyword is used much less. Action and funk are more frequently used, to be sure. You're right, Keith, over there on Twitch. Why are the YouTube viewers so low? They go up and down. They're significantly higher than they were for the last stream. So we're also into summertime here in the States, in North America. Folks are out of school, so we're running right into vacation time, holiday time for folks. So not as many folks are around to watch live. You published a NuGet package a few months ago. Oh, congratulations, Tony. You're a university student. All the best. Good luck to you. Let us know how your studies go. And certainly when you graduate, let us know so we can help celebrate with you. That's an awesome thing for folks to graduate with a degree in software engineering. Let me wrap up here. We're done our opening AMA. Yes, that is an underused feature, Redmer. You wish someone did Azure IoT on stream? Would love to have that. The Microsoft Developer Channel has been doing a bit of that. You can find that on the Microsoft Developer Channel. There are archives on YouTube, youtube.com/Microsoft Developer, and I know they've been doing Azure IoT on stream. Oba asks, anyone have trouble with Windows 11 Pro killing flash drives? No, not at all. Yeah. And gosh, if you're a software engineer out there and you just finished university, I know a lot of folks finish their university studies in May or June. If you just finished your studies, you got your degree, let us know in chat. We want to celebrate with you. That is an awesome accomplishment. It takes a lot of work to get there. And we want you to know that other folks here in the technical community, we support you, we encourage you, and we want to see you successful out there in the industry. Hello, PC nerd. All right, let's wrap this up. So we're going to talk about containers today. Now, I got into this and I started thinking, all right, what am I going to write? How am I going to structure this? Where am I going to go with this? And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to put together a rough agenda and let's see where it goes. And we'll just write up what we've done afterwards and put it over there. Because this is one of those, I feel like this is a topic that I enjoy discussing. I know well enough that I can let the conversation flow in the direction that we need it to go, because I don't want to cover beginner topics if we don't have beginners watching. So, I want to make sure that I hit a level that's appropriate for you. You graduated from IT department last July, but you couldn't find a job. Still can't find a job. Oh my gosh. Good luck to you there. There's lots of folks hiring out there in tech. Need to work on that resume a little bit. Sometimes interview skills help to work on for us as developers, but there are lots of folks that are always hiring out there. There is no shortage of software developer jobs. You're a hobbyist with an advanced novice. That's okay. That's cool too. Where should we start? At the beginning, In the beginning, there were virtual machines. No. We all know what a virtual machine is. Little virtualization slice so that it has just the things you need, and you can save off that configuration, inherit from that configuration, build and start those very, very quickly. Think about it. If I'm on Windows and I can start up a Linux-based container in just a few seconds, and it has already configured and running in there for me, MySQL, SQL Server, an ASP.NET Core web server, a microservice, a worker service that will perform whatever task for me, and I can start it up very, very quickly. Multiple copies of it without having to go and ask someone to go and configure that and do those things for me. That's pretty powerful technology. And that's what containers are. And that's where we're going to jump in and start configuring and seeing how we can use C# with containers and the various tools that we have available for us to build and work with those containers. Napalm. In the beginning, there was electricity. And some guy named Ben in Philadelphia decided to fly a kite with a key on the end of the string. Maybe that's too far back. Virtual machines are a hobby for Fabian. Once in computing history, computers had built-in sofas and couches, and we liked it that way. Computers looked like refrigerators back then, too. You can automate repetitive CLI commands. There you go. Well, that's, yeah. So let me start off. I'm going to start off on the Docker website, because Docker is kind of the name for things in containers. So not that one. Got to make sure I hit the right button here, you know? There we go. This is docker.com. If you're going to install and run container technology on your workstation, whether it's Mac, it's Linux, it's Windows, you need a copy of Docker. Now, there are various licenses for this. I'm not going to get into the specifics of those licenses. There is a community license available for you that will let you build and work with containers on your desktop. So that's cool. That's something that you can use. I'm not gonna go too far outside the box here. I wanna play it close here and get folks into this quickly. Can you look at a Docker container like some program running in system tray? Yes. While a Docker image can be cloud version of a compact disk we used 20 years ago, yes. So we define containers to have a collection of software in them. Go into that. And we can stamp out those containers, many copies, instances of those, the content of those images, and have them running next to each other. So I can have many of them running on top of Docker or another orchestrator that sits on top of a host operating system and some infrastructure. Okay. And then when you think about this, not going to get into that. And then pricing, that's fine. When you think about this, then, that means I can run many, many copies of whatever application to handle larger workloads quickly. It also means that I can start up, handle a small workload, and shut it off quickly and minimize processing. Lots of different models that you can use with building and deploying containers. Why are there no Docker images with Mac OS inside? Because Mac OS is not allowed by their license to be deployed and run on anything that is not Apple hardware. That's their license. That's the limitation of it. So, let me see, scrolling through here. Ubuntu or Windows? That's a good point. Dark Angel on YouTube. You can, not only can you run Docker containers on Windows, Mac, or Linux, can you run on there, but you can host, right? So there was a host operating system here. You can run containers in a Windows operating system. So your container inside of it is running Windows, or your container inside of it is running Linux. Now, you can't run Windows containers on Linux, but you can run Linux containers on Windows. So Windows containers only run on Windows, but Linux containers run everywhere. Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. So you have choices now. That makes things very, very interesting. And there are folks trying to work around that, yes, but it's mostly a licensing thing. You're having problems running Nginx in front of the private registry you're hosting on the cluster. That's a little bit further than I wanted to go here. So, okay, that's what a container is. Those are some of the models and things that we can do. There is a collection of container images that are available out there for you on what's called the Docker Hub. Think of this as a storefront for pre-configured machine images for you. And there's all kinds of stuff out there. Napalm was just mentioning Nginx. You can grab an image that has the Nginx web server for Linux, built, installed, ready to go, and it runs on all kinds of different operating systems and hardware. You can get it on Intel processors, you can get it on IBM Z, PowerPCs, ARM, and run it out there real easy, and it's a Linux version of that. Sure, right? There's Ubuntu, Python. You can get a Python image. You can get the Redis database, Postgres database. Download and run that quickly wherever you need it. And you can see there's tags here that identify different versions of the Redis database that are available for you here. Does it have the file size here? There's various documentation. No, it's not showing the file size here. I thought it showed the file size, but I must be thinking of something else. So, and these pulls numbers, remember that folks rebuild and pull copies of these every time their application builds. So they build, when they're building and deploying a new whatever, it grabs a new copy of Ubuntu, brings it in and compiles and builds and deploys. So we can talk about that briefly, Roberto. Yep. So let me just throw a notepad over here, make sure. So I want to make sure I cover building C# applications in a container, Docker lists containers with the SDK. I want to make sure we cover a dev container. Sure, we'll talk about dev container with VS Code. Sorry, Dark Angel, folks, you're going to get a great Visual Studio experience with VS Code. What features are you missing from VS Code that you want? Yes, Nginx is very popular for ingress. Yes, it is. What are the downsides of using a container? Ask King Clars on Twitch. Great question. So when you're building and working with a container, everything that you're working with that's on disk inside the container is just that. It's inside the container. So let's grab the Ubuntu image here, and let's run Ubuntu here locally on my machine. I'm going to open up a console here. This is Windows terminal, right? And I'm just going to paste in. I have Docker running here locally, right? Let me just show you that quickly here. It is, there it is. There's the console for this, and I can see the various images that I have available here. And I can see the running containers. And right now, I don't have any containers running. So let me go pull a copy of the Ubuntu image. And I have a copy of that locally. I can now run that. I'm going to run it with an interactive terminal -it. And it's going to start. And now I'm inside Ubuntu. You see how my command line here changed from, right, I had power lines running in PowerShell and Windows. Now I have root at some hash code here and a hash icon there because I'm inside the container. Nah, hang on. Let's do this. Let me split my window. Let's split the window that way. There we go. So I'm over here in PowerShell. I'm over here, and you can see I'm inside the container, okay? And when I do an ls there, you see I have what looks like a Linux operating system. And when I do an ls here, you see it has all my projects in my dev folder, right? So I'm not in the same location. I'm inside the container. So to the question of, well, what's the drawback? When I'm working on disk inside this container, right? So I'm in my home folder here. And if I just touch and say, hello world text, and if we go to edit that, I don't even have VI installed here. Nah, I won't even echo, but there's hello world text sitting there on disk. It's not a full copy of the operating system. It's just this little image. And when I exit and go back to Windows, right? Did it kill it? Yeah, I exited and it killed that container. Now, if I try to restart it, and I go to connect back into it, 74, and I want to connect back in. Hello world is still there because that container stopped and I reconnected. It's still running out there and it's running in the background. But when I remove that container right? And go to rerun. I get a new copy of this, and that hello world text is gone. So you end up managing what are called volumes, pointers to other disk that you're going to mount inside your container so that they persist beyond the life of that little virtual machine that you're managing. Good question, King. Thank you so much for asking that over on Twitch. Build kit for ARM compilation. Excuse me. What do you mean? Help me out there. How you doing? Spicy Thunder on YouTube. Hello. You're on the Visual Studio channel asking me about Rider. Rider's a competitor to Visual Studio. It's great to have competitors. It's good to push each other on competing products, to push each other on features. We make Visual Studio here at Microsoft. I like Visual Studio, and I work on that team. That's the tool I like to use. You're literally asking me when I'm wearing a Microsoft hat and a Visual Studio logo, and I'm appearing on the Visual Studio channel, if I like our competitor. They do a nice job. The folks over there are doing a nice job pushing the product, introducing new experiences. I can't speak more about it than that. Can you run a static web app CLI in the container? Sure you can. Absolutely. Hey, Warm Peas, hello. How much difference is this between an Oracle virtual machine and running a program? So running a full virtual machine takes a lot of processing power because you're starting up and handing off gigabytes of memory, threads of processor to a full virtual machine, versus when I'm running a container over here, you can see that it's not using much. When it's dormant, it's doing nothing. If you have an application that's running and actively doing something in there, sure, it's going to take up processing. It's only using less than a meg of memory out there because it's not doing anything. And I can, of course, jump into a terminal here and take a peek around and interact with my application from inside my Docker desktop here. But I can also work at the command line. So it's nice to have those options. Now, a lot of folks will work with the logs of the container so that they can see exactly what's going on. Follow along with what's happening in there. So that's one thing to be aware of that's out there. Is that a command extension to get those colors in terminal? Yes. That is Oh My Posh. Configuration for that is on my GitHub in my .files repository. GitHub.com csharpfritz.files is where you'll find that. DJ Deepex on Twitch asks, is Docker completely isolated, or is there a way to get, for example, RAM usage of the host machine? You're isolated. You can't, from inside the container, reach out and say, well, how much RAM do you actually have? You request at the time that the container launches how much RAM you would like. So, right, let's move over here to the other side. And when I say Docker run, most folks don't run this at the command line. Developers that are testing and running things, you may run this at the command line, but I'm going to show you tools in Visual Studio that will allow you to skip that. But you can request how much memory you want at configuration time. Otherwise, it'll expand and give you as much as it can. You can also request how much CPUs, how you want to allocate across CPUs, so on and so forth, if you need that type of fine-grained control. For most of what we do as .NET developers inside containers, that isn't necessary. You don't need that much configuration. Hey there, Jam. Thank you so much for the kind words there. So you can run Ubuntu, Kali, and such in a container, says Oba. Yes, without going through the how much RAM do I need to put this on? Exactly. Right? So let's exit this. And it's killed. That's fine. I could do docker ps-a and it'll show me that, well, it's out there if you want to restart it. No, get rid of that. Goodbye. And it's gone. I can... If you saw through my background, you could see it was being updated and handled back there inside the Docker desktop app. But there's other flavors here besides Ubuntu, right? If I want to go grab Alpine, right, which is a very, very small, only 5 meg image, right? So let's go grab Alpine. That's small. Take a look at the images that we have here, that I have here. And it's a mess. I've got a lot of these. So there's Ubuntu, and that's 77 meg. There's Alpine, and that's 7 meg. There's some other ones here that we're going to talk about. There's Redis with some modifications, and it's 1.7 gig. RavenDB is down here, and it's about 370 meg. So we'll talk more about some of these other ones that I have here. So if I run an Alpine container, right? Alpine. So, right, I've got this very, very small container. Okay, it looks like it's got a Linux-based operating system. If I go to the home folder, right, and there's not a lot going on in here. I do have VI available to me. That's nice. I can still write some things, right? This is my home folder. Yay. But it's a very simple, very small deployment that's available for me here that I can tinker around with and work with, and I can put other things on top of, and I end up with a very, very small, fast-loading container. I mean, take a look here at the details of this thing. It's even less memory usage, same network I/O, but it's so small that building on top of it when you have a small application runs quickly. And right, startup time is, for some applications, essential for this. You have to make architecture choices when you start containers. Do I want to wait for potential start time of a container? Right? So there, it just cleared out and removed that container. So if I want to start that container, you saw, right, that took a little bit. Or I go run Ubuntu, and it's got a bigger disk footprint, and it still starts in a second. Like, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. We can pass commands into those containers and tell them to do different things, but those are base container images. Containers are hierarchical. Just like you can grab a computer operating system image, and you can start building on that, and archive off, literally grab that hard drive, take it somewhere else and start building on that hard drive. Same thing here. We can start to build on those. So while you have these base images for Alpine and Ubuntu and Nginx and Python and Redis and Node, we can do that and extend and put our application on top of that, so that now our application has those resources available to it as it goes to run. Now, for .NET and for official Microsoft container images, we have the official Microsoft Artifact Registry. This is part of efforts to make sure that you get the official images for .NET, for whatever tools it is that you want to use that are published by Microsoft, because you have to go to a Microsoft registry to get them. So the Docker Hub is what we call a registry that manages images. There's the Microsoft managed and owned registry out here, and we can find .NET images out here that have the .NET runtime all ready to go for you on there, so that you can install and run your applications that you build with C#, Visual Basic, F#. They're all available for you. There's even versions of the SDK out here for .NET Framework 4.8, 4.81, so that you can build your application inside of a Windows container, deploy and run that on Windows machines, scale and take advantage of some of those capabilities that folks have in Linux containers. A word of caution, though, Windows containers are significantly larger than Linux containers, have some other configuration things that you need to go through to run them, but it's possible to do. Let me catch up with chat here. The terminal makes me look cool. It's right, it makes me elite there, the jerks. That's right. Michael on YouTube asks, are virtual machines obsolete now? Can everything just be containers? I wouldn't say they're obsolete. They've fallen out of favor, to be sure. If there are repeated tasks that you need to run, absolutely folks will push to use a container architecture. However, there are some industries where it does make sense to have a virtual machine sitting there running, processing, handling multiple services, and orchestrating those services. And for those industries, for those regulated environments, in some cases, it does make sense to have that secured all-on-one machine operation. However, there are ways to achieve that same security using orchestration and containers and security around that orchestration. It can be done. In some fields, it's not as trusted as just put everything on the machine we know how to lock down that one virtual machine and work with it. You have choices. It can be done. Takes a little bit more orchestration and scripting. You're welcome, Oba. Glad to hear it. Napalm says, I guess maybe that would be useful if you weren't using an orchestrator. Exactly. An orchestrator like Docker Compose or Kubernetes are orchestrators that folks like to use. An orchestrator is a tool that allows you to define a collection of containers to start and manage the lifetime of. Hey, you know what? When my application starts up, it needs a database, and that database needs to point to this folder, this area on disk, so that we can persist the data from the database. That application also needs a website, so also needs a web server. So let's also start up a second container that has the web server. Allocate this much memory for the database, allocate this much memory and processor for the web server. Oh, we're getting pressure on the web server. Let's decide to add a second web server. Let's decide to allocate more memory to those two web server images, and so on and so forth. Those are the types of tasks and features that an orchestrator will give you so that you can scale your containers and manage the lifetime of them appropriately for your application. The default max RAM value by a container, the one in, I don't know that off the top of my head, nobody. Let me see here. Yep, RavenDB. That's right, Pure Chrome. I do enjoy RavenDB. How about Ubuntu 22 chiseled image? Asks Alfredo. What about it? Give me a little more context. What about it? Hello, the Neo on Twitch. Blowfish Fugu. Greetings to you. How does routing work between containers? Great question. Does each come with a separate IP address? Yes. They do come with separate IP addresses, but they're internal to their configuration. That's a Docker Compose. I'm trying to think if I have a sample handy. I don't have a sample handy right now, but when you start them, they have internal IP addresses to each other, and you will define specific containers for ingress and egress that are allowed to take in connections and they're allowed to reach out and interact outside of it. So they will manage their own internal network that can see each other. So we'll see if I can get to Docker Compose. That might be a little bit further along than I have here. What's the hosting cost for Azure for Linux containers versus Windows containers? I'm not going to get into... you can look at pricing Azure, right? The Azure pricing page. Pricing Azure... Windows containers don't run on Azure Container Apps right now. I don't think they do. Container instances, I believe, are where you're going to get it running. There's Linux OS, there's Windows OS, and $3.50 per gigabyte for the month, $3.24 per gigabyte for the month on Windows. So it's a little bit cheaper right now on Windows. Those prices pivot back and forth depending on how much you're using and how competition is doing. So you can, that's container instances. That's one way to just start up and say run a container here and just leave it running all the time. That's the way I run my feedback website for ClipTalk. It's a container instance just hanging out there. So 5 plus 2 is 7. It's a virtual network. Yep. Do you define pages and components as two different things when coding a Blazor app? Off-topic question. I prefer to knockout. If you use Nginx, you can link directly to the container names in the Nginx conf. I have not seen that. Okay. Same cost for base compute. What are we looking at? We're looking at stuff, Zach. So this is the Microsoft Container Registry. You'll see it's mcrmicrosoft.com. And that's where you'll find some of these official images. Now, we've talked about what Docker is and what container is and some of these images that are available to you out there. But let's actually build an application. Let's actually start an application here. I'm going to use full Visual Studio to get us started here. But let's start a new project and put it in a container. So let's build a, let's build an ASP.NET Core web app, because web applications are something that you will see folks put into containers a lot. You also see folks put APIs in containers as well. So I'll call this my container app 1 and .NET 7. I don't need authentication. And I can turn this on and just say, give me Docker with that. And it will create and put all the features out there that we need to build and target Docker. I'm going to let that build to start here so you see what this generates for you. Because it's kind of neat, the things that are available out there. I have my containers window up here. Yeah, look at that. It already started it and it's running out here. So if I go to Solution Explorer, I've got the things you typically see here. I've got root with a bunch of stuff. I've got pages. I've got an index page here that says learn about building apps with ASP.NET Core. Nice, okay. But it's clearly a container down here inside my containers window, right? You can get to the containers window, right? View other Windows containers, or you can cheat like I do in Visual Studio and do Control Q to jump into that search box and say, well, I want my containers window. And it'll pop that open for you if you have it closed. And make it available, and of course you can dock that wherever you'd like inside Visual Studio. So it's already building and running this container in the background. It's right there. And if I click on some of these things, you'll see there's environment information here. It's configured for working with .NET, things like, well, where do my NuGet packages live? What version of .NET am I running? Where is ASP.NET Core listening? What are the URLs it's listening on? Well, it's listening on any address at port 443 and at port 80. And this is the development environment inside the container that's running over here. I can also see the ports that it has opened. Now, to the question of, well, it's got these ports inside, how do we expose and interact with it? You see here these ingress ports where I can reach in. The host port is opened for me to connect in and navigate to that application. So I'll click that, and I'll see that it's not doing anything. There's other folders that it's mapped here on disk so that we can get hot reload to interact with that stuff. I think it's not actually running. It's just sitting there on disk at this point. And I can also see the folder structure here. Inside the app folder is where our tools place your files, your content that you're working on. My debug button changes up here from saying, well, run it and open run with Kestrel here in standard port 80 mode, TLS mode, connect and run it on IIS Express, run it in Windows subsystem for Linux, but I can actually run it inside the Docker container now. I'll click that and you'll see build succeeded. You can't see it, it's off the bottom of my screen. And I'm not going to show the PowerShell, but I can see the logs opening up here for the container. So here's the container. I'm in the logs tab, stream, and you can see all the things that we would have gotten written out to my terminal are being output here in the log stream, being saved to go with that container, and I do get my application. Now, working with containers in Visual Studio allows you to build and interact with that content directly inside Visual Studio. So I can change that and not get the hot reload isn't. Yeah, hot reload isn't enabled for that, but I can change that, restart it, and it's built, put it into the container, and showing the new content live here. So I have assurance that it works inside the container. And when I'm ready to, I can say, well, publish this container and put it off to the side and make that application available. Well, how does it know how to configure that container? This is where Docker files come in. So here's a Docker file. And this is the instructions. We talked about the instructions to configure a virtual machine. Here they are. We're going to build on top of, from the Microsoft Container Registry, the .NET image for ASP.NET 7. Now, it's for .NET, for building applications, the default Docker file that we generate here takes a couple steps and uses several child containers to build so that your build artifacts don't get included in your final instance of the container that's made available. So it's going to take an SDK version of the container that has all the tools by default that you need for building ASP.NET and .NET applications. It's going to copy into the container from outside. It's going to copy in your CSproj file and run .NET restore. Go get all the NuGet packages for this and copy them into the container. Copy the rest of the content in and run .NET build. Build my application, put it into release configuration, and output the results of that into the build folder. We're then going to call .NET publish it in release mode to the app publish folder. Finally, we're going to copy into our clean base container the results of that publish operation so that inside there Yeah, we're not going to see it in this just yet. I need to run the publish as it can to see it write this out. It won't have all the source code and things in here. You won't have CS files. You'll just have a DLL running in there. So it gives you a secure, smaller container that doesn't have all the other stuff that it doesn't need. It has just the framework and your application running in it. Let me catch up on chat here. We're going to talk more about other things you can do with this in just a second. With Docker Desktop, if you signed into your Docker Scout, those Microsoft Artifactory registries are open to you. Okay. Yes, these containers already come with the .NET runtime inside of it. You're right. It is... I forget where it is. It should tell me. It's in user local or something like that. I forget exactly. I forget exactly where it is. But it's floating around in there. You can dig and find it. You use a mono container. Mono container? Unless you are Jess Frizzell, she literally Dockerizes everything she does. And that's fine. Keeps her base operating system very clean. So we're running a website from inside this container. I can put a console application inside this container to the point that Napalm is making there. So let's add another project to this. Right, so let's add a new project. I'm going to add a console application here. Sure. Sure, I'll call it console app 1. Run it with .NET 7. And it just says hello world. Let's say, hello. I'm inside a container. And of course, I can run that now. Come here. Come here, you. I am looking for the console. Why am I not seeing it? No matter. Back over to my terminal. And I'll go there. Right, if I .NET run that here, big deal. I'm inside a container. I'm not really inside a container, I'm just running at the command line. But if I want to put that inside a container, I can right-click and say add, where is it? Docker support. So in any existing application you have, we have tools in Visual Studio that say, well, go ahead, add Docker support. I want to run that on Linux or Windows. I like to run it on Linux. And it generates a Docker file for me with the appropriate build statements here. I can debug on Docker if I want to, but let's actually build the container, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump up one here, and I'm going to say Docker build, and let's call this, it has to be lowercase tag, console app 1, latest. And we're going to run that from the console app 1 folder. And I did it wrong again. I think I have to give it the file. Console app 1, Docker file. There it goes. And now it's building the contents of that container. You see it's pulling in the appropriate images that it needs, and we're going to see it step through. You see, the coloring's not great here. My apologies, but the highlight's not going to work. It's grabbing, downloading, and once they're downloaded, it doesn't have to re-download. And you see there, it's running .NET Build, .NET Publish, and now it's available inside of Console App 1 Latest. So I can run that. Console app 1, and it runs, and It's just that console app inside a container. It runs, it's done, and it's dead. It's completed its task, and it stops, right? If we look at the containers that are out there, show me just the ones that are running. There's the one that's running here inside Visual Studio. And try that again. And there's console app 1. Now it has an ID that's a SHA hash over here. We can go through and clean these up. You can also see them in my containers tab over here. So, right, I'll just go through and clean up some of these old ones here. So easy to do, easy to build and deploy and say, hey, look, there it is. It's running in a container, and I've got this Docker file. But the Docker file, we learn, we see people looking at this, and it's yet another scripting language that folks have to learn. That's right, I'm taking a shot at YAML. So what if we could give you options so that instead of running .NET Publish yourself and pushing the content in a container, what if we could do that for you? Right? Like, give you an option to build and make that container yourself. Let's get rid of the Docker file. Let's make it easy for you to build and put that in there. Starting with the .NET 7 SDK. I want to make sure that I draw appropriate lines there. .NET 7 SDK is different than the .NET 7 runtime, is different from ASP.NET Core 7, or Blazor 7, or .NET MAUI 7. The SDK is that thing. When you type .NET at the command line, that is the SDK. The .NET SDK can build all older versions of .NET and .NET Core. I forget if you can build .NET Framework apps with it, but .NET Core, .NET 5, .NET 6, .NET 7 applications can all be built at the command line using the .NET SDK. What if we could give you the ability to publish and put your application in a container? We wrote a really nice bit of documentation for that here. I'll share this link into chat, and I'm going to catch up to chat in just a minute here. I want to make sure I get through this bit. There's the link. I'll make sure I put this in the notes for the stream. You can now build and put your application in a container just by saying .NET Publish container. Let me show you. So you create your app. That's creating a worker service app. You have to add a package that helps. goes. And it's pushed, and it's now running inside. It's available with the rest of my containers right there. C# with CSharpFritz console app. Might be easier to see that. Over here, images, there it is, inside Docker Desktop. I didn't have to write a Docker file. All I did was tell it, publish this as a container. And if I run that, right, crumbs, what did I call it? C# with CSharpFritz console app. Right. No. You didn't do it. C# with CSharpFritz console app. Come on. Console underscore app. Oh, rats. What? C# underscore with underscore CSharpFritz underscore console. Oh, the tag is 100. And there it is running. It's just off the bottom. There you go. So, makes it even easier to build and create these. And I can do that same thing with the ASP.NET Core app that we put there, right? My container app 1 that's over here. I can get rid of that Docker file. Yes, I know it will be. Stop that container over there. Go ahead. And jump over to my container app. Let's add that same package. Right? It's already on disk, so it's just creating a pointer to it. Go up one, and now if I go to publish that, hang on. Now do the .NET publish. And I didn't specify the name of the image. It's building it. And the image is called My Container App 1. And if I go over here, go ahead, kill that. These are sitting out here running. And now there's My Container App 1. If I go and run that, I can configure, sure, let's go from 8001 to 80 inside. Invalid volume. What? I can see where it was built from. Okay. Go ahead, run. And go ahead, just run it. So there it is running, but I can't actually get to port 80. Well, maybe I can. No. No, I can't because it's not public. It's not exposed. I don't think it'll give me 80. 80? I don't even need to specify that, do I? No. So I didn't pass it through. You need to pass through the network connection so that it knows to get there. Let me catch up with chat. What if there's an API and a client web app in the same solution? So, Martin, you can publish those as separate containers if you'd like, and have them be able to talk to each other. Publish them in the same container as one website. Your architecture, your decisions. What's the advantage of containers, and what is the benefit to you as a software engineer or program? Everything's isolated. When that web server is sitting out there running right now, there it is. It's isolated and doing its thing out there, taking up 26 meg of memory. When I'm done with that container running out there, I can stop it, and I'm now running a machine in the same context as I would run an application, and I can even delete it, and it's gone. Not even going to attempt to run. So that's some of the advantage. But I also have the advantage of saying, well, you know what? Go ahead and run one. If one's good, two's better. And now I've got two of them running out there. We can do fun things then, like set up a load balancer in front of the two and let it balance between those two requests. That gets interesting. That might be something appropriate for your application because you want to balance the workload between multiple web servers. Set up a load balancer here on my machine that balances between containers running here or over there on your machine or somewhere else, and load balance those requests. Scale up, scale down quickly, right? Heck, throw another one out there. Yep, go ahead, run. And now there's three of them. Like, that's isolation and scalability, right? At an impressive level. And I'm only working here on the desktop. We haven't even deployed out to the cloud yet. And I've got less than 10 minutes left here. Let me continue answering some questions. The container just contains the web app project. Well, in this case, we've added only the web app project to it. If inside, let me delete these, clean that up. If inside my web app project, right? If I added a library here, right? So let's add a class library. Sure, that's fine. Right. So here's class 1, public static string, say hello, string target. Love me some GitHub Copilot there. Then inside my console app, if I add a reference, right? So I'll add a reference to class library 1, and I can say console right line class library 1, class 1, say hello, Roberto. Save that. I'll go back over here, back over to console app 1, and I will republish that. That should build. It does. Yeah, there it goes. And it rewrote with the same tag. So now if I do docker run, and I'm just going to copy that. And now it's got that library inside it as well. So, right, we've got the ability to layer in all of our references as well. Do I have to have Docker installed on my development machine to do all this extra Docker stuff within Visual Studio? Yes, if you're going to be doing things with Docker containers, you do need to have the Docker tools installed. Now, there are other tools. I'm using Docker here, but there are other tools that are available. Docker is the main one that folks think of when they talk about container technology. Can the version tag increase automatically on build with Visual Studio? You can pass in a tag version. There is an argument you can pass in because it is a configurable. The tag of the image is inferred by the numeric component of your chosen target. Not that one. Come here. Container image tags. You can pass that property in. and specify what it is. And they're actually specifying 2 tags there. So plenty of options to be able to set that. If you want to grab that version number from some other tool that's configuring version numbers for you. Maybe it's a tool at the command line. Maybe it's your continuous integration tool like GitHub Actions. You can do that as well. I'm not shadow banning. I haven't done a single moderation task here. I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't answered your questions because all you've written is test. .NET 1.0, well, .NET Core 1.0, even though that's not supported anymore. How you doing there, Daryl in Africa? Hello, hello. How's it going, Alan? Why is my terminal colored and yours isn't? I've got configuration. I've applied configuration to Windows Terminal. You can see my configuration over on my GitHub repository, github.com csharpfritz /.files, and my configuration is in there. Have a good one, Thindall. You wish Visual Studio would help with Docker Compose as well? It used to. I don't think it does as much anymore. How to do an example of Dockerized Hello World into a remote Linux server. So let's publish. Let's publish. So if I'm going to publish that out to Azure, I don't want to publish just a command line that says hello Roberto. I want to publish a website. So I'm gonna take the easy route here and say publish from inside Visual Studio, and I could specify, yes, we're going to be going out to Azure, and I could specify, well, what model am I publishing? Well, Azure Container Apps is a way for you to run an application inside a container and have it manage the state of that container. Knock it down when it's not in use. App Service is also out there that allows you to run that consistently and scale up and down. But I'm going to run as an Azure Container App. And yes, I thank you. Oh, thank you. Sure, create a new Azure container. Sure, that's fine. Let's give this a new one. So that I can find this when I want to knock it down later. Thank you. No, I don't want to run in Australia. I would like to run in East US too. Whatever. That's fine. Container name, sure, go for it. Now, there are registries out there where it can save these containers. Just like you saw, Docker Hub, Microsoft Container Registry, you can stand up your own registry that folks can save into, access. You have to be authenticated into to be able to interact with those containers. This way, your applications aren't just sitting out there for anybody to be able to query and work with. You have that private location for your application. So, write ports to the host directory. That's what I'm thinking. The mistake I made there. What does it need to keep in mind when you want to build a container of a web API that has a reference to a class library? I just showed that, so I'm not going to go into that. Yeah, the -p syntax. Yep. We actually have 2 containers for each project. No, you have one container that has the result of the compile of the project that I saw there. I have 2 containers that I created, one for the console app, one for the container app. Think of the container as the execution scope of your application. How do you execute your application? You execute the entire website runs. You execute the command line tool that runs. So that's going to go publish. Yes, create a new one. Go. I thought it just did this. No, I want basic. go. So I have a console app. I want to execute that in the scope of just one container, right? I could put that inside of other containers and be able to execute the contents there, but that's probably not where you want things to run. Yeah, the same way Visual Studio handles the Docker files. Yeah, generate and manage it. It's nice. James S. Does Docker Desktop take up a lot of PC resources? No. It creates a virtual machine in Hyper-V or in Windows subsystem for Linux for you. I'm looking for... Yeah. I've gone too far. There we go. Yes, put it there. Yep, use the .NET SDK. Push that out there. Sure. That's fine. Where is it? I just had... Discord. There's Docker. So you can see here just above me, just to run Docker is called 100 meg. Not bad. So there it is publishing. Okay. Yeah, publish. There's my profile. And I can save this publish profile off as a GitHub action if I want. And it'll have that script available for me so that every time I deploy my source code, it'll deploy a new copy. I'm a little bit over time here. I need to wrap up. It is very lightweight, yes. Is there someone who knows how to write C# Maui Mobile? You're off topic, sorry. Take a look at our other videos. There's lots of folks that do. Plenty of videos here on YouTube that show you how to do that. Can I show how to do that same example of Dockerized Hello World into a remote Linux server? That's what I'm doing right now. Your Gia vlog. Sorry, you're off topic. What about Ubuntu 22 chiseled with runtime inside? What about it? Help me out. Am I using PowerShell or Linux in my main terminal? PowerShell. Have a good one there, Napalm. You're welcome, Zach. Really? What failed? Error. Do it again. No. I'll have to dig in and figure out why, but I am at the end of my time. You saw how we ran containers here locally. We should be able to publish and get it up there. There's something that I misconfigured here in my deployment, but you can copy the configuration for this, run it on GitHub Actions, and have your application running on Azure, on anybody else's cloud very, very quickly. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I'm right at the end of our time together. We covered a lot. There was a lot of introductory content there, a little bit more than I expected, talking about what a container is, how we can interact with it, and what scope it is. We saw how we can define a Docker file that has some script in it that's specific to Docker's language to define what a container is, how to start, how to run our application. We also saw that we can build containers directly with the .NET SDK by just using a new package that's available for us to add into our application and get that running with a .NET publish command right away. Microsoft.NET.build.containers gets that started and running for us with the .NET 7 and later SDK. Visual Studio has some really cool tools built into it for helping you build and work with containers. And of course, you can publish those containers to a bunch of different services on Azure and other folks' clouds. Thank you so much for tuning in. This video is going to be recorded and available for folks here on the .NET YouTube channel. I'm going to write up a little bit of our notes for today. I'm going to take a look and see why that didn't build. Get some notes tacked on to our entry on GitHub. That will be linked in the description just below. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you here today. I realize that that's the wrong music, but that's okay. Let me see who else is streaming on the big Twitch TV network. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, check out some more videos that we have here on the .NET channel. They're linked right over here and just below. Especially check out that C# with CSharpFritz playlist. But for now, you know what? I'm going to get you connected over to our friends on the Code It Live channel. They're hosting their show React Wednesdays, where they talk about building applications with the React JavaScript framework. Those of you that are on Twitch, I'm going to send you over there to Code It Live. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back tomorrow streaming on my channel over on Twitch, twitch.tv/csharpfritz. We're talking about the Whisper OpenAI model and how we can use that to transcribe content. You'll see me over there on Twitch tomorrow, same time, writing code and talking to you about technology. I'll be back here next week. We're going to be talking about more C# technology, more questions. I think we may even pivot and go after some other C# topics and start pivoting away from some of these Azure discussions. Thank you so much. Get ready to say hi to our friends on the Code It Live channel, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Where's that button? Is that it? I think that's it. And did we get to Code It Live? Get over there.